By the mid-1940s, the tides of World War II had turned, and legend has it that desperate Japanese soldiers buried a treasure of gold and relics in the Philippines.
They took an immense amount of treasure from temples, from banks, anything they could lay their hands on.
It's alleged to have included gold bars, which were taken, melted down as bullion, and re-stamped as Japanese gold.
Is it true that a vast treasure was buried under the Philippines during World War II? And is it still there? Or is it all just a great story?
The idea that there's this vast treasure under the surface, it's just too attractive to resist.
The so-called lost Japanese treasure is one of the world's great unsolved mysteries. While the Nazi looting in Europe took the spotlight, Southeast Asia was also being systematically plundered. A vast collection of relics, antiques, artwork, and importantly gold was amassed over the course of World War II. When things took a turn for the worse for the Japanese forces, they were said to have desperately searched for a location to hide their priceless treasure trove. Is this mythical plunder real? And if so, what was hidden and where? And what, if anything, is left today?
Japan embarked on an absolutely ruthless effort to loot every country that they occupied before and during World War II. We're talking China, Korea, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, the Philippines. Nothing was safe from their soldiers.
And it's the mere prospect of discovering untold wealth that continues to bring treasure hunters to the Philippines to this day, including Klaus Donner. 4 years ago, the Austrian researcher disappeared off the grid. For a time, no one knew where he was. Then only a few of his closest friends and family were told where he had gone. The Philippines, deep below ground. In the time he's been there, Klaus and his team of local workers have manually dug and pneumatically drilled vertical shafts deep into the ground, about 60 meters down. Having been given exact details on where to dig by his contacts, they unearthed an already existing network of tunnels. Who originally built them is unknown, but the fact they exist 60 meters underground makes this a very real treasure hunt.
When I found out how dangerous the job here is, I was hiding for a while. Only a few good friends knew where I am. On the internet, many people were searching for me, but I did not want that everybody knows where I am, because that could have brought me into danger.
Klaus believes he's very close to reaching the Japanese treasure. But it's not easy down in the tunnels, and he acknowledges just how dangerous it is.
In the first year, we were down already in a big hole, 30 meters, and we were already very close to one big bunker, and the whole mountain came down, because what I did not know at that time, there was a huge amount of clay. And when that material gets dry, it will very easily collapse.
By 1942, the Japanese Imperial Army had invaded much of Southeast Asia and removed many treasures as they looted Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and what was then known as Burma. Similar to what the Nazis were simultaneously doing across Europe, they stole priceless valuables en masse. this practice continued in Southeast Asia for many years. As the Japanese advanced, they mercilessly ransacked country after country, stealing art, gold, and treasures on a massive scale. This covert operation across Southeast Asia was codenamed Golden Lily and was headed by Prince Chichibu, the Emperor of Japan's brother.
This massive plundering of Southeast Asia was intended to fund the Japanese war effort, and the direction, the coordination of this huge theft went right up to the imperial household.
Having scoured treasures from across Southeast Asia, the next step in Operation Golden Lily was to get the treasure back to Japan. Before they could do that, they first melted down the gold into easy-to-move gold bars to erase any identifying features and prevent the valuable metal from being traced back to its country of origin. The gold was then taken to the Philippines to be inventoried before being shipped home to Japan on their massive naval fleet.
This plunder was meant to fund the Japanese military machine, and they knew they would need to win with technology. And they were investing heavily in some of the most sophisticated military vessels and weapons ever in history.
Japan's Golden Lily project probably was entirely real. Looting systematically is a huge purpose for embarking on war in the first place. I mean, nations go to war to gain geopolitical power and riches.
But in June 1942, just 6 months after both sides had entered the war with the Japanese attack on the US Navy base Pearl Harbor, the US and Japanese forces met again, this time at Midway Island in the Pacific Ocean. Over the course of 4 days, the US sank 5 Japanese ships, destroyed 270 aircraft, and killed 3,700 military personnel.
You've got to imagine what a huge reversal of fortune this is for the Japanese. In 1941-42, they were conquering the Pacific. They had almost taken Australia. You know, they were on their way with Hitler to achieve global domination. And yet, in just a couple of years, the United States was pushing them all the way back across the Pacific, straight back to Japan.
The Japanese had lost control of the seas, and the only way back to Japan for the survivors and their looted treasure was blockaded by the US. It was too risky for them to ship the gold home. They needed a new plan. Allegedly, they sank a number of their own ships at sea to keep the Allies from intercepting them, and decided to bury much of the treasure hoard, especially the gold, under the island of Luzon in the Philippines.
The Japanese were in a tight spot. They had all of this plunder, but if they wanted to send it, let's say, to mainland Japan, they had to risk sending a ship with the wealth of their military out into open waters riddled with American warships, submarines. And so if you look at the complex island chain and archipelago of the Philippines, there are lots of little hiding spots, lots of little places where they could safely tuck away some treasure without it being noticed. And that may have been a much safer option than putting that out in the open where it could get sunk.
In their final effort to protect the treasure, the imperial family turned to one of their most experienced generals, Tomoyuki Yamashita. The general was instructed to hide the gold, with the hope that it could be recovered at a later time once the Japanese were victorious. He identified over 100 underground sites across the islands, many of which were previously existing underground networks.
To hide all this treasure, it's entirely feasible that the Japanese may have used pre-existing tunnels dug by the previous Spanish colonial power or the Americans, and possibly dug their own tunnels. But all of this, of course, to remain out of sight of the Americans in the air and local resistance.
Yamashita ordered detailed maps to be made of each treasure vault. what was stored there, and how to navigate the tunnels into it, which was then carefully encoded. Unless you knew the complex code, these maps were meaningless, and there were even further layers of security to defend the sites.
The Japanese protected their hidden treasure locations by creating a system of treasure maps coded very elaborately based on ancient Japanese symbols, which would be very difficult for anybody else to decipher. If they were able to do so, however, there was a second line of defense in the hiding places themselves in the form of booby traps, such as cyanide vials that would explode upon contact, bombs, other things rigged to kill anybody who tried to go and take what the Japanese thought was theirs.
With time running out, Yamashita ordered the engineers to seal the treasure vaults. He had one last trick up his sleeve to protect the gold. The story goes that while the soldiers are carrying out his orders, Yamashita sealed the vaults himself, with the engineers still inside. They would be its guardians for eternity. Less than 3 months later, World War II was over. General Yamashita was put on trial for war crimes and took the secrets of the gold to his grave.
Yamashita never even had the chance to consider revealing the locations of the treasure after he was captured because he was executed by the American government.
But Klaus Donner, an Austrian researcher dedicated to uncovering the spoils of Operation Golden Lily, believes that the Japanese treasure remains in the Philippines to this day, and he is on the hunt for it. Based on insider information from the locals, he and his team have targeted one village of particular importance. Across the site, they have dug 4 vertical shafts deep into the earth, some nearly 60 meters. We are not allowed to reveal the locations of his shafts, nor the information he has gleaned from the locals, but he is sure he's close. It's dark and treacherous. The threat of death is all too real.
The most dangerous moment is coming when we open one of the chambers. And then we have to be very careful because I'm sure that in the rooms you will find explosives. If we find gold bars, we have to be very careful because I got information that some of the gold bars have a poison on top of the gold bars. That means if you would touch them with your plain hands, you would die. So we prepared already long rubber gloves, and we prepared also protection clothes for the moment we go inside the room. And if we have explosives inside, I get a special bomb squad to check it.
Although Klaus is yet to find out if he's on the right track, there was one infamous finding by a local that has been documented. In 1970, Filipino locksmith and amateur treasure hunter Rogelio Rojas obtained a permit to excavate a particular site in Baguio, in the north of the country. Why he chose that site is unclear, but he was reported to have dug underground for many months before uncovering an existing network of tunnels. As he dug further, there are reports of him finding weapons, a wireless radio, and the skeletal remains of Japanese soldiers. After several weeks, he broke through a concrete floor to a lower level chamber, where it said he discovered a large quantity of wooden boxes, each one about the size of a beer crate. When he opened one of the crates, he found 24 gold bullion bars. Rojas also claimed to have discovered a golden Buddha, whose head tilted back to reveal several handfuls of uncut diamonds.
After all that digging in dusty tunnels, tunneling his way in the dark, Rogelio Rojas, that moment of wonder where he finds those 24 gold bars and the gold Buddha. You know, he's finally found the enigmatic treasure buried by the Japanese all those years ago.
Rojas made no effort to conceal what he claims was a major find. He posed with the golden Buddha for at least one newspaper photographer, and it's reported that he showed it to several potential buyers. During the following weeks, Rojas is said to have sold 7 of the 24 gold bars.
He did this during a time when Ferdinand Marcos was dictator of the Philippines, and Marcos had issued an edict stating that all treasure hunters needed to get permission from him in order to go searching. Well, Rojas had not done this. Ferdinand Marcos sent his henchmen to knock on this guy's door and hauled him off to prison.
On April the 5th, 1971, men in uniform came to Rojas's house. They showed a signed search warrant issued by the local judge, a member of the Marcos family, and they inspected his house. They attacked his brother with their rifles and terrorized his family.
They came to our house in Aurora Hill. They raided our place. They get our personal things, Philippine money, the golden Buddha, and the gold bars. They take everything. We're a happy family before, and after they destroy our family circle. My dad told us that everyone of our family, they will kill. We ran away, almost half day to walk to go to the mountain. I stay at the mountain almost 7 years. I'm 6 years old at the time. We don't have any parents because my dad, they put in jail almost 2 years.
He was held captive and told to sign an affidavit that the raid on his home was performed in a peaceful manner.
There is a paper they want to sign. My dad don't like to sign that paper. They tortured my dad. They put an electric shock inside the body and they hit my dad. My dad is have a big black eye.
Once the authorities got wind of his discovery, his whole life was turned upside down. His house was raided, he was taken into custody, he was imprisoned by the state, and, you know, he was left very much as a broken man as a result of finding this treasure.
Interestingly, the case of Roger Rojas is perhaps the one piece of this story which is documented in legitimate historical evidence. And then that is in the records of a trial that was held in the Hawaiian Supreme Court 20 years after Rojas found his treasure, when he brought suit against the Marcoses for violation of his human rights, for the torture that he was subjected to when he was imprisoned.
In February 1986, Ferdinand Marcos was deposed and fled with his wife Imelda to Hawaii under US protection. He allegedly carried suitcases full of gold bullion bars and massive amounts of bullion certificates. During President Marcos's trial in 1993, American mining experts testified that Ferdinand Marcos had showed them a solid gold Buddha statue with a removable head, as Rogelio Rojas had described. It also matched the photograph of the Buddha with Rojas in 1971. They also testified that they were asked to help with the remelting of gold bullion and removing any trace elements that might reveal the country of origin. Was this the treasure that Rojas had found? Rojas again tried to press charges of bodily harm and the theft of his gold, diamonds, and the Buddha. A series of legal actions followed in Hawaii, culminating in a staggering jury verdict in 1996, awarding Rojas $22 billion.
A Hawaiian court conclusively decided that Rojas had discovered gold treasure buried in a cave in the Philippines and that the Marcoses had taken it from him wrongly.
But nothing has ever been paid to either Rojas or his family.
We're waiting for the justice since 1986 until now.
Rogelio Rojas died a broken man in 1993.
Told to my dad, even you're dead already, Dad, I will continue the case and I will continue the treasure hunting activities, Dad.
Following in Rojas' footsteps, Klaus Donner has now spent over 4 years on his hunt for the Japanese treasure. He and his team have excavated 4 large vertical shafts down to about 60 meters into the earth. He claims that he was given exact details on where to dig, and they uncovered a large tunnel network. Who built them and why is unknown, but the fact that the system exists 60 meters below ground makes this a very real treasure hunt. And today, he's being joined by Andrew Goff.
Hello, Andrew. Hi, how you doing? Good to see you. Oh, man, it's been a while. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How was your trip?
Researcher and writer Andrew Goff is a self-confessed mystery enthusiast. He has spent years investigating the mystery of the Japanese gold, and he believes that much of the treasure is still hidden underneath the Philippines. He's a friend of Klaus Donner and has visited him at his excavation site before.
I've been passionate about the Philippines and the legend of the Japanese who looted 12 Asian countries. The question being, did they take that loot and bury it in the Philippines? Is that fact or is that fantasy? So over the course of a number of years, I had reached out to Klaus Donner. He had completely gone off grid. Nobody had heard from him other than the rumor that he was someplace so spectacular that he couldn't leave.
There's different kinds of sites, right? There's sites that have just football pitch chamber full of gold bars, but there's also something called imperial treasure. What's that, and which one do you think that you're close to?
I'm sure that we are working on 2 imperial treasure sites because on the way we had a lot of booby traps. The most dangerous was always the cyanide.
Cyanide.
They were putting cyanide in glass and they put the glass inside the cement. I know what I'm doing because with 70 years, I would not be 4 years here digging in knowing that I'm spending my time for nothing. I hope for me that we find also many interesting, very old artifacts.
It's more than likely that there have been treasure hunters out there looking for all this loot. And if they've found it, why would they go public? Isn't it more likely they just keep it privately to themselves?
Hi, hello, my friend.
Good to see you again.
Within the secretive treasure hunting community, there have been finds which give Klaus hope.
I know some people who really found some treasures, some gold bars, a small jar with some diamonds, and I was shocked.
Klaus claims that he was given all sorts of important information by people who knew what was hidden and where the Japanese put their treasure. He began by scouring the site for signs left by the Japanese that could reveal the location of the hoard.
That's the horse head, sir.
This is here.
Yes, sir. And then the eagle.
That's amazing. It does look like a horse's head, doesn't it? There's the eye, there's sort of the nose.
And another one we have over there. That looks, for me, like a geographical map of the area here, that when they came back, they would have the map. They would know exactly which direction means what.
Makes a lot of sense.
Find the next markers.
The interesting thing about Klaus are his methods. They're a combination of many different disciplines. He uses maps. He researches areas that are more likely than not to have been places where the Japanese could have hidden things. He also interviews people, talks to the elders to understand, have you seen something? Can I find an eyewitness?
I met also another eyewitness when he was 16 years old. He was working for his father on the field, and then some Japanese soldiers came. They just took all the corn on the floor and they loaded heavy boxes on that small cart, and they forced the young guy to bring those pieces up to one of the places where we are now working. And he saw how they brought the heavy boxes up to the small hill. That's exactly the place where we were digging.
Klaus isn't short of determination and enthusiasm, and nobody can take that away from him. And he's dug his own tunnels. He's identified what he believes are markers in the countryside that indicate where those tunnels are. But are these markers real?
Look, here, for example, is another typical marker, because you can see that this and this is a different material, no? And here.
Right.
It looks like a big tunnel and side tunnels, and we know that here are tunnels with side tunnels, no?
In the village where Klaus is digging, the Japanese come repeatedly asking about a particular tree. I've seen that tree. Of course, everyone says, no, I don't know what you're talking about. There's no such tree, not here. So there's a memory or some copies of these maps that have, trees that aren't indigenous, stones that are carved to look a certain way. And this gets into the realm of, are you seeing things, or are these really markers? I think if we had the original maps that had the location of where these symbols are, then it would be a lot more believable.
I'm quite sure on our 4 places now we are very, very close, because first was the white ceramic. The next layer had some leaves in front, gold dust and diamond dust. And we have a big echo on each of the places in front and sometimes also on the side. That means the entrance and then the room going around the corner, the chamber.
Klaus is excavating vertically. He's digging tunnels straight down, and that's one of the most dangerous types of digging or excavating you can do. In this area, particularly with the volcanic activity, you get instabilities within the rocks, but you also get gases coming out from the volcanic activity, such as sulfur, and this can kill within minutes.
But despite the danger, Andrew is keen to see the tunnels for himself.
I'm really not a squeamish guy. I'm not claustrophobic. I've crawled through mastabas and pyramids all over the world, no problem. But these tunnels are different. You're taking your life into your own hand as you descend down. The ladder is completely vertical and made of bamboo. So the steps where you put your feet, you get about that much of your foot secured, and it's completely wet. I distinctly remember, what am I doing? I could die, I could fall. It takes all of your focus and all of your attention to just get down to the point where now you have to walk on your hands and knees. It couldn't be any more inhospitable. How many people are working down here at any time?
3 in this tunnel, 3 in that tunnel, and the others bringing the material up from top.
That's a lot of people. That's a lot to coordinate.
Oh, yeah.
The really interesting thing is you finally reached the bottom. He hasn't gone any further. You're at the very end of where he has gotten to. And you would think, all I want to do is sit here, explore, contemplate. No, you want to get the hell out of there because you fear, not that it's going to collapse on you, but you can't imagine how it feels to be that deep in such a tiny space. You just want to leave. This is not easy. This is not...
Oh, no.
health and safety walk in the park. It's damn dangerous, but the reward is going to be, huge.
But despite their belief that they're on the hunt for and very near to finding the so-called lost Japanese treasure, not everyone believes that it's there.
Tunneling is really advantageous to the Japanese as a form of defense. You can get a kind of small, wiry little Japanese guy down a tunnel, but you can't get a great big US Marine down it. And we see that in Vietnam 20, 30 years later. So actually, tunnels are essential for Japanese defense. They're essential for hoarding far more useful things, such as food, ammunition, and other sorts of supplies. You know, actually, booty and plunder and bars of gold are pretty far down the list. And actually, you're probably not going to store them in a place your enemy's going to try and attack. You're going to probably want to store them in the safest place possible, and that's back home.
Now, for me, as somebody who understands the logistics of military operations, this doesn't hold a lot of water. The reason is, imagine all the logistics the Japanese needed to get those goods up the mountain. You would have needed a similar, if not greater, logistical trail or chain to do the same thing, getting it down the mountain and out into the system. Now, soldiers talk, and the rumor mill among soldiers runs rampant. And the fact that there have not been any real credible reports from soldiers or Filipinos who said, I actually carried some of this plunder, this treasure, down from the cave or from the mountain, tells me that it seems unlikely they would have been able to pull off an operation like that with such secrecy that there's absolutely no evidence of it.
And even in the Philippines, there are some skeptics. Dr. Ricardo Jose is an expert on the country's history.
I don't see the logic of burying treasure in the Philippines, particularly in 1944, because first, the guerrillas were all over the place. The guerrillas were watching. They had eyes and ears everywhere. They would have known what was going on. They would have reported this. And then, secondly, the Japanese could have used other areas to ship the gold or the other treasures through. They could have used Vietnam, Taiwan, Korea, which were theirs anyway.
But modern-day treasure hunters aren't deterred by this harsh reality. They firmly believe that there are still priceless valuables to be found.
If you're a treasure hunter today, do you think, hey, I'm gonna go by the book and get a permit and find the treasure? No, you don't, because you know you're putting up a signal to the government that you've got a treasure site. So nobody asks for a permit, and plus they don't want to give away 30% of what they find to the government. And that's why you don't hear about discoveries, because it's all on the lowdown. There's places in Manila that will melt down gold and put it into a modern standard. That's what's going on.
The thing about the Philippines is it's long been treasure central. You know, way before Yamashita, you had rumors of American bullion being located in the region, but even more attractive, the Spanish ruled the Philippines for 400 years. Think of all those galleons loaded with silver and gold coming from the New World that were shipwrecked, and some of these shipwrecks undoubtedly exist. So the Philippines has always been a magnet for those looking for treasure.
At their undisclosed excavation site in the Philippines, Klaus and Andrew go back underground into the second tunnel. While Klaus has dug 4 tunnels at this site, due to excessive rainfall, only 2 of them remain stable enough to enter.
3 to 4 weeks ago, we had 3 weeks continuing heavy rain, 1 typhoon, 1 monsoon hit us, and we had a big problem in the tunnels because it was too much water. We have here water. The ladder is very slippery. Here we have a round boulder, a marker that we saw that we are on the right way down inside the air shaft. And I can see already that there is still a lot of water in the tunnel. You did it, Andrew.
Thank you, guys.
I'm proud of you.
That wasn't so bad. Very exciting.
So shall we go? Andrew, this on that side, that is our deep hole. That's the sub-tunnel. And now we are on 42 meter, and we go here, the other tunnel.
The thing about Klaus's work is that you would think after 3 years he would have found it. But the fact is, the reality is, these chambers are incredibly deep, and that's why nobody has found them. They're from a historical record of people around the time when the first chambers were excavated, indicate that they're about 220 to 230 feet deep. Now, Klaus is just about there. He's probably within 10 or 15 feet of that level. It's absolutely humbling to be down here and to realize the effort that goes into these inhospitable conditions. I mean, I know there's usually not water in here, but Klaus, this is extreme.
It was a horrible hard time sometimes, because sometimes you cannot sleep in the night, you wake up sweating, you think, are you on the right way? Is all the time and the money you had to spend for nothing, do you really find something? But thanks to that gift, without that, we would never have been able to find those perfect markers, the ceramic wall and all this, which gives me the knowledge that now we are really close. But on the other hand, the closer you get, the more unexpected trouble are showing up. It looks like somebody would test you. Is he really able to get it? Is he the right one to get it? So let him get a lot of water, let him blow off the generator, burn out the pump, and then you have to count, can I buy a new pump? It's getting already tight. With more budget, we would be long already finished.
So what are you going to progress next?
We break the cement with the leaves, and the echo shows me that we are close, and then we should be in the first room.
Amazing. So you're talking maybe a week or 2 weeks of work?
1, 2, 3 weeks.
Right.
I don't know how thick is the wall.
Amazing work. Amazing work.
On the way down, we always found special markers that gave us the security that we are really on the right way. For example, we found triangle stones. We found round stone with a hole inside, which means also correct destination. We found incense, big parts of incense in the hard material. Here we had also a white layer showing us that that's another way to a tunnel. So we are here on a crossing point of 1, 2, 3 treasure sites. When you find white cement, that means you are very, very close, and we got already on all 4 of our sites white layers. So that's made me sure that we are now really close. And also we found close to the white, we got some layers with gold dust, we got some layers with diamond dust. So that means we are definitely on the right way.
I'm astonished at the commitment that an effort like this requires. I mean, just look at this. You couldn't possibly have more arduous conditions. But everything that he says is true. This is all man-made, it's artificial. And by all accounts, he's really close.
We assume that the Japanese took some of that treasure out on hospital ships and that the Marcuses got their fingers all over it as well. We have to ask ourselves how much of it is left.
Despite numerous theories about where the valuables might have gone over the decades, Klaus Donner is one of the many treasure hunters who believe it's still buried deep underground.
We are on the bunker wall. Very, very hard to go through, because as I heard, The bunker walls are between 3 and 5 meters thick of this very, very hard cement. We had a big problem in the tunnels because we're filled with water, so we had to buy additional pumps to pump out the water. All the tunnels are in a good shape, no danger for the people, so we can finally continue, and I'm quite sure we are very, very close to a success.
Klaus has expended huge effort in the Philippines and really tapped into that belief that there is treasure underneath the ground in that country, and he's found markers which he claims that the Japanese put there locating the tunnels. He's dug his own tunnels, he's used dowsing to try and find this treasure. But you know, after years of effort and years of determination, and nobody can take that away from Klaus, unfortunately he's found nothing.
After years of supporting a long and deep dig, he is very low on funds.
It's really difficult to get your head around how expensive this operation is. Klaus is a 70-year-old Austrian. He's retired. He's now having to employ over a dozen people. I've stayed with Klaus in his home. Every night, the workers come over, and Klaus's partner feeds them every single night. And when I ask the core members of his team, do you think you're about to discover a Japanese treasure hoard? They say, yes, of course. And I say, what are you gonna do when you get your share of all those millions? I'm gonna open up a rice farm. It's as though the quest is what keeps them going, not so much the money at the other end.
Patrick Nicholas has worked with Klaus's team for the last 4 years. He's a former aircraft technician and helps locate the tunnels.
I mean, there are many times that I've seen him go through his challenges, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I would have quit a long time ago. However, the focus and the devotion that he has to what he's doing is something that I'd like to really get close to. The fact that we're on the cusp of success, I'm very excited. You know, and I also understand that, you know, the closer we get to success, the more obstacles that we'll have, the more challenges we'll have. But we just have to stay focused, you know? Thank you.
See you next week.
Okay. Have a good one.
Have to do a lot.
Okay.
Bye. Have a safe trip.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Klaus is absolutely resolute, not one iota of doubt that he's going to find the treasure. His motto is, we dig it. No worry, it will happen.
With all of these treasure hunters and all the labor hours that have gone into digging, tunneling, excavating, what has been found so far? At the very best, maybe we know the geology a little bit better, but in terms of treasure, not a single thing.
Klaus Donna is utterly convinced he's going to find this treasure. Does that mean he will? The harder you try, the more likely you are to succeed at anything, so I say go Klaus.
Sometimes these things are all-consuming. You know, actually looking for treasure becomes a hobby rather than an end in itself. So, you know, good luck to the man. I'll buy him a drink if he finds £20 million worth of gold, you know, over the next 4 years. But in the meantime, you know, he should just enjoy the jungle.